Hello, guys. Back again to another session. This time is the exam preparation part two, and then we have a few things here that we need to know before the examination begins. To start with, we're going to look at what this is. So, the exam, everything here has a meaning. We see that the Rubik's Cube lies down here, and the chessboard lies down here. We have the cube and the chessboard, and we have the cage. Now, the cube has a cage, and the chessboard also has a cage around it. So we'll figure out what they all mean. But quickly, examination. Remember that what we do want is that we want our errors xed and mastered. That is the essence of examinations. When you're writing exams, you want all your errors xed and mastered. So examination is not about the one who really knows, who has so much information. It's the one who can X out or mark out all the errors. So errors X'd and mastered exam. So to master exam, you must understand that exam is a game of strategy. Exam is a game of strategy. And what game of strategies do you know? There are two games of strategies here. So the Rubik's Cube is one game of strategy, and the chessboard is also another game of strategy. Now, the cube helps us in what strategy game? So when it comes to examinations, the cube helps us to understand number. The cube helps us to understand number, whilst the chessboard helps us to understand words. The chessboard helps us to understand words. So let's pick the chessboard. So first, the chessboard. So when it comes to words, how does the chessboard help? So we can have every sentence stripped down to some core word. Remember, you can have every sentence stripped down to some core word. That's what the chess helps us to understand when it comes to words. What it means is that imagine that this is a sentence on a chessboard. The setup here is a sentence. Now you can see a pattern tracing all the way up to a single triangle. So a sentence can be stripped all the way down to a single word. So you can have every sentence stripped. The reverse is also possible. So you can have everything stated also stretched. You can have everything stated stretched. So if there's a statement made, you can also stretch that statement into a lot of words. And that is the whole idea of the power of words. So, for example, this here is the stated word. This means words. So remember that when it comes to examinations, I want to stretch this into a whole sentence. So remember that words operate like recording devices for success. Words operate like recording devices for success. Also, the core element of words is that you should be able to write well. Write well. You should be able to organize well. You should be able to read well. You should be able to deliver well. And you should be able to store information well. This represents the core element of words. Now, that is for the chessboard. So the chessboard helps us to understand how words play out in being stripped down and being stretched out over the chessboard. Now we have the Rubik's Cube. Now, when it comes to number, there's something that we have to understand. Let's build it up from here, the cube. Yes. Now, the cube, when it comes to numbers, you can utilize build-up of errors. Remember that. When it comes to the cube, you can utilize build-up of errors. What means that in maths, a lot of solutions requires various steps. And as you make those errors, the errors form a cube, so to speak. And it's your skill level in solving the errors. So you can utilize blocks of errors. You can utilize blocks of errors. So these are the blocks of errors. In fact, there are 27 blocks of errors in here. Now, each small block represents an error that you can commit. In fact, the chessboard, the triangle pattern that you see here also contains 27 triangles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. So there are 27 pieces in a chessboard triangle, and there are also 27 pieces in the cube. So remember, you can utilize building errors, or you can utilize blocks of errors to your advantage. And so we have recently just seen what a cube is. So when it comes to math, this is what we do. And the cube helps us to understand number. So like I said, never underestimate mistakes. Yes, never underestimate mistakes, because you can build error for results. Never underestimate mistakes. You can build errors for results. So there's a way that you build up the error pattern so that everything in the error, all the errors are corrected and all the colors are aligned. And that is what helps us to be able. So there is a way to build up errors for results. So never underestimate mistakes, but build errors for results. Number. So we're going further to the next part, which is the cage. Now, the Rubik's Cube lives in the cage. The chessboard also lives in a cage. So what cage is this? So when it comes to words and number, words live in a cage called the chessboard. Numbers live in the cage called the Rubik's Cube. Remember, the Rubik's Cube has 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then numbers are created by 9 digits from 1 to 9, and 0 means nothing. All numbers in the world are created from 1 to 9, and including 0, which means nothing. So let's keep that in mind. 9 counts of objects and a hypothetical 0, which represents nothingness. So when it comes to numbers, the C stands for commutative property. The C stands for commutative property. A stands for associative property. Now, when it comes to number operations, the G stands for what I call is distributive property, but I like to call it giving property. The giving property. So a property that seems to give. So takes and gives. That's why I call it distributive property, but I prefer using the word given property. Then there's the element of identity. This is the element of identity, or the identity element. This is the element of identity, or identity element. It means that the identity element is like a mirror. It's a mirror that helps you recognize a number. So there's always a number that helps you recognize another number when it comes to the operations. So that is the cage. So when it comes to the cage, there are four operations in the cage. There are four operations that are in the cage. So it's addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. These are the four elements inside the cage of commutative property, associative property, giving property or distributive property, and the element of identity. Please remember that all these operations behind the cage, follow these four operations. And when it comes to words, you can words have commutative property, words also have associative property, words have given property or distributive property, and words have identity element or the element of identity. We'll look at that in class, so stay tuned when we come. When it comes to number, I said numbers start from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. How you arrange those numbers also matter. How you arrange words also, numbers also matter. So there's a way. We have a commutative property here also, associative property also there, the given property, and then the identity element also in the cube. All of them are present there. We'll look at it more in the classroom. So remember, the four operations follow a simple pattern. The four operations follow a simple mathematical pattern that we want to highlight. So when it comes to addition, yes, we're going to keep this pattern. Addition, then subtraction, then division, then you slide multiplication slides. That is the pattern. So we're going to use this pattern 1 to solve the cube. We're also going to use this pattern to see how words can be added, subtracted, multiplied, and divided. All these operations work with words and number, and they follow the cage: commutative property, associative property, given property or distributive property, and identity element. So remember this. This represents the cage, and the operations have been caged inside here. These operations are going to run the cube and run the chessboard. So we keep it here. The cage will just be placed here. So it's now time for us to understand. Now that we've understood the chess board, we've understood the Rubik's Cube, and we've understood the cage, we're going to use these three elements to play the game. It's called Game 3D. So how do we play the game? So in playing the game of examination, 1, you have to know how to smart fail. You have to understand the signs of falling, and igniting learning. You have to understand the science behind falling and igniting learning. You have to understand the mathematics behind falling and igniting learning. You also have to understand the art of falling and igniting learning. That is the first one. In other words, you must learn from the fall. Each of the little falls that happens over the study period, you must recognize it, yes, to ignite your learning. Very, very important. Because when you do that, you will be able to take smart steps. You'll be able to understand the science behind steps, the math behind the correct steps that you need to take. You also understand the art behind the correct steps that you need to take. And these steps follow a pattern. These steps follow a pattern. So we have the first thing that you want to do when it comes to these steps is that you must understand the science, or you must understand that in exams you have to take short notes. Short notes, extremely important. learn how to take short notes, and also learn how to create mind maps. So this is you need a mind map to be able to solve this. You need a mind map to understand the chessboard. The same way you need a mind map to understand numbers, you need a mind map to understand words. You need a mind map to understand the cage. You need a mind map to understand exam. You need mind maps for everything. And also you must understand that you must use active recall. It means that you have to sit and try to recollect. That process of recollecting is extremely important. And then we have repetition and revision. Repetition and revision also extremely important. Yes. Going through the 4 levels of difficulty for every topic, extremely important. And I have to understand the texture of examinations. The texture of examinations is such that imagine pouring water into my hand. How much of the water can be there? So when we learn on a daily basis, it's like pouring water into our hands. Our brain is a sponge. It has holes in it. So when you pour something into your brain, for the first day it is there, but the second day almost a large part of it is gone, unless you pour another amount and attempt to hold your fingers together or hold concentration. You will never be able to retain. So remember the texture of examination that is slippery. What we learn easily slips through our fingers. And then you also have to understand that you have to practice a lot. Explain to yourself, explaining loudly to yourself. And then also you have to understand the value of time. Time, the value of time. That means that you shouldn't be distracted. The value of time. You should know what to do one day before the exam. You should know what to do 1 week before the exam. You should know what to do 1 month before the exam. Then 1 minute after the exam, you should know what to do. Now 1 hour after the exam, you should know what to do. And then get into the last 10 minutes of the exam, you should also know what to do. So timing is everything when it comes to examinations. And finally, you cannot ignore sleep, sleep, sleep. So I'll introduce you now on the issue of sleep. I'll introduce you to two pets. One is a cat, one is a dog. So the cat is a master of sleep. The cat can sleep for 13 hours a day, conserving all his energy, conserving all his focus, working on his timing. The cat knows how to, as if to say, explain to itself what is going on in its environment. It's able to practice a lot. So you see that from time to time, the cat will scratch wood. Yes. Also, the cat understands the texture of information. It remembers almost everything when it comes to executing a task. The cat can also realize that it repeats what it does over and over again. Usually, when they are born and they are little cats, they keep repeating the pounce, they keep repeating how to jump to catch. And then you have A here, active recall. Try a cat always actively recalls information, and that's why it's able to put it into use. And the mind map, the mind of the cat is mapped out so clearly that it can jump and get to specific points. And then you have the first one, which is S, short notes. The cat takes short steps in its way to carry out its tasks. So what I would say that the cat is cautious and tactical animal. The cat is a cautious and tactical animal. But the dog is not so much cautious and tactical. And unless the dog is old, it does not really sleep. The dog moves about most of the time without really sleeping. So it has energy, but not to the extent that it can be used to carry out a particular task. And the dog is always agitated by what it sees. So when it sees something, it just responds to it. So if it's afraid of something, it runs away. If it's not afraid of something, it attacks it. But the cat will not run away on anything. So the dogs, I say the dogs decide on their gut feeling. The dogs decide on their guts. And that is what usually causes them to fail at what they're doing. So they have to try several times. But the cat, because they are smart on all counts, they are able to carry out the tasks. So now we have been able to set ourselves up with the exam. We know what to do when it comes to examinations. Now there's the distributive game that we have to. Now we have to continue our lesson in class to know exactly what we have to do. So join me in class to extend the concept of number and words in game 3D, the smart. There's a smart workbook also, and watch out for it. I'll send it to you when you join me in the classroom. Yes, once I forget, let me forget. So all this is thinking like an AI. So BHM puzzles, remember, think like an AI. So everything I wanted to tell you about exams is stored in these words here. Each alphabet can be stretched out to mean something, and it can also be stripped back into this whole concept. So you see, this is one of the learning techniques that I've shown you, and these are called acrostics. So we'll learn more about acrostics and also number computations in the class. So stay tuned.